everyone, and welcome to a better late than never edition of ARG Presents. I'm your good friend, your good buddy, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man I literally pulled from the morgue. I give you the half-dead Brent.
Hey, how's it going?
It's appropriate that you're half dead this week, Brent, and I'll tell you why. Because
Arr.
last week we spun that crazy wheel and we made that spooky deal. And the deal we made was bam, holiday games. Now listen, there's only one holiday you talk about on October 26th, Brent, and that's everyone's favorite day. No, I'm just kidding. It's Halloween, brother. It's Halloween.
Why
It's
do you
coming
hate
up.
trees so much,
I
Aaron?
don't hate them. I like to chop them down and decorate them and then burn them. That's what I like to do.
No, you like to drill through their roots like some kind of
Well, hey,
crazy man.
listen, you should be down with that because much like yourself, I like to get the sap. That's you. That's the joke. Anyway, we spun the wheel and we're
You
playing
don't get that
Halloween
from roots,
games.
Aaron.
Halloween games this week. Now, Brent, I went through and kind of listed some of my favorite Halloween games and some stuff that I got off various lists. And we, as you know, we've covered this topic sort of before when you picked an abomination, something that lives on. And it was only the second stupidest thing you've done next to your battle chess as a comedy game. When you picked The Simpsons Hit and Run as a Halloween game. I hope you've done a better choice this time around.
The Simpsons was a great choice, and I stand by it fully.
Well, no, it was a dumb choice.
You
When
just have to play through the whole game to see it.
Yeah, for that. Yeah, that's no one's giving you a pass on that. With all that said, because we've already condemned you for
No
that
one ever gives
stupidity.
me a pass on anything.
That's right. That's because you do something we could forgive. So aside from that, what are your favorite when you think Halloween video games? What come to mind?
Like spooky games?
Well, no, whatever Halloween makes you think
Oh
of.
no, obviously it's not whatever Halloween games come to mind because I get ridiculed.
No,
Ridiculed
go
for
ahead. Set
years.
yourself up for more ridicule by just telling me the first Halloween games that come into your head. Is it Battle
Well,
Chess, perchance?
to be honest, the first Halloween game that would come to my mind is
Clear-
Jason, Friday the 13th. That's the name of it on
Wow.
the Nintendo.
What? Really? Why?
Because that was a game I played back in the day because I thought it was a scary game.
Yeah. It's a
And I
dopey
was like,
game.
well, I mean, no, it's okay, yeah, it is dopey.
You know,
But the thing is, I don't like scary games. So, like, I don't mind like Resident Evils or the games we're talking about today. That I don't mind that type of scary games, but like jump out gotcha games, I not my bag. I don't like that kind of scare.
I'll have to say, a lot of the games I used to think of for like a Halloween style game, me and Boat have covered so many really bad Halloween games. And I'll talk like the Elvira series. There's many zombie games on the Amiga that we played, or Fright Night, based on one of my favorite movies. But now, as the years have went on, and we have played a lot of horror style games on the TeamSpeak regulars. Speaking of Friday the 13th, we played Friday the 13th, the game on there, and that actually is a pretty fun game. It supports like 7 or 8 people simultaneous play, where one guy plays Jason Voorhees, and the other people play the various camp attendees trying to get away from Jason. That's a pretty fun game. That was
I
sort of
prefer Dead by Daylight,
well. That's another one.
but it's definitely in that same vein, just more people.
Yeah. That's a
What
good
about Phantasmagoria?
Phantasm. I thought it was Phantasmophobia. Wasn't Phantasmagoria the old
Yeah.
the old
Yeah, that's
game?
a different game.
I played that
Also
too one
scary, but
time
a
on
different
stream.
way.
That was a big mistake because there's parts
I
of that shouldn't be on stream.
I
But
if you recall, Aaron,
yeah,
I was the one that turned you onto that game, and I was in chat the time you were playing it live,
yeah,
and you weren't quite sure how the game worked,
yeah.
and then I started talking to you through the headset, but you thought I was gone and started freaking out because you thought the game knew your name.
No, that was
Do
creepy.
you
I don't.
remember
I
that?
don't remember that. It sounds like you're
Oh
making
my
that up.
gosh, it was hilarious.
But I will say that game, in case you haven't heard of this game, it's a game where you're a ghost hunter and you're supposed to achieve these various goals. It's in a house. It's a first person affair, and it is lots of jump scares and creepiness and weirdness. You ultimately, I always get killed when I play that game. It is a scary game. So that's another. So I will say the modern stuff, they've kind of kicked in with some pretty good stuff. When it comes to the classic stuff, I'll tell you one that always got me as a creepy game, and I know it's old, tired tread, but I thought Alone in the Dark was a scary game. I had that it had H.P. Lovecraft connection. I thought that thing was super scary. And I also will mention a game we covered on this show a while back, Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. That's another one that fills me with a certain sense of dread and creepery. You remember
E-
that one?
Yeah, yeah. Eternal Darkness, another
Yes, that's
classic
another one.
horror game.
We just covered that one, what, about 3 months ago?
It
That
hasn't
i
been too long.
that was one of the best. That probably was the best GameCube game. I think it was at N64. Was it GameCube or N64 that
It
was
was
on?
GameCube.
Yeah, that was one creepy game. I really enjoyed that one. And we've been lucky. It's actually we've had better luck on this show playing creepy games than me and Boat had. Well, although we'll see how that stacks up today. We might as well go ahead and just get into it, the Brent. So since we are going a little bit later than we normally do this week, because the Brent here has been a little ill, but he bounced back in a big way. And so now that we've had a chance to digest these games, we picked 2 games
Oh,
from the Halloween season genre here. I'm going to let Brent lead the dance before he loses strength.
oh.
So Brent, well, listen, we got to put our best foot forward here today. What game did you choose to talk about today?
First of all, I'm glad that you finally recognized that I am the best foot to put forward.
Yeah.
I brought to the table an arcade classic, and when you talk arcade games and horror games, uh, there's several to choose from. You know, you've got your chillers, you've got your like Monster Bash in the arcade, but I went with probably the last scary game in the arcade that I can recall from Midway, and I went with Carnevil.
Carnevil. Yes, this was one I saw. This was one that must have sold pretty well for them because I did see this thing quite a bit back in the day.
It's kind of crazy. Yes, this was a big hit for them. And just a little bit of background on it. This was a gun game released in 1998 in the arcades. And it came off of the success of other shooters, what other shooters were doing at the time, and they really wanted to take it in a different direction. They wanted to have a scary game, and they wanted to have a shooting game because their shooting department was doing great. Terminator 2, Revolution X, just 2 that come to mind that were huge profit makers for them. And they
Revolution
were
X was a big money maker.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
that game's so
Um
goofy.
Oh, it is. It is. I'm not saying it's not. So they said, "Okay, it's time for another big shooting game. What are we going to do?" And they were wanting to make a horror game at the same time. And they got together, and the first pitch for Carnevil was bad. Like they were like, "Okay, maybe this isn't what we want to do." They had a different plot where it didn't follow the carnival side of things. It was more of a story driven type of affair. And they said, you know what? We're not gonna scrap this, but we gotta retool this. And they retooled it and started putting the carnival themes to it, which brought us to Carnevil. Uh Now, Aaron, do you remember Carnevil actually had 2 types of play, we'll say, in the arcade? Do you remember what they were?
Oh gosh, no, I haven't seen one of these
Uh,
things forever.
I when Carnevil first came out, it didn't have guns. It had little shotguns. And to reload, you didn't shoot off the side of the screen. You did a pump thing with your rifle pump.
Wow, I don't know if I
That's
ever
how you
saw
would
that.
reload.
No
Ah,
kidding. No.
yes.
So they were shotguns.
Um,
Were they attached to the were they attached to the cabinet or were they on?
oh yeah, they're the exact same thing as a light gun. 100% all that was the same.
So you could, but I
But
mean, you held it. It wasn't like attached to the cabinet with like a base.
no, it was still attached with the
Okay.
wire.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty good
Yeah.
there.
All that was the same. The only difference was to reload, you did a shotgun pump style instead of shoot off screen.
Right.
Uh, those are hard to find anymore. They obviously they still exist. That's how the cabinet originally came out. But this also sold really huge as conversions, and the conversions all came with regular guns.
Oh, I see.
So, which had the normal shoot off screen type of affair. I have played it with a pump way back in the day, and it makes for a more enjoyable game because you can stay focused in the action. And something with Carnevil, it is fast and it is continuous. So having to shoot off screen to reload is a major hassle. Um, Carnival has you play as a carnival goer that finds a coin and inserts it into an old abandoned like fortune teller machine type thing. And that is how the you enter the world of Carnival. And Carnival is broken up into 3 stages that you can play in any order and then one final boss stage. Back in the day, I actually played this not to completion, but to the I've played through all 3 of the main missions and went to the final area, and which it becomes a quarter eating machine. I mean, this game is already a quarter eater, but that last level, I don't know if you played it while you were playing your time, Aaron, but it is absolutely brutal.
I didn't play the
Uh,
last level. I played a couple levels of it, and but I watched the whole game. And the last level it was too cheap. It bait real cheap.
yeah.
Yeah. That's it was just simply there for you to sink money into.
So the whole theme of Carnival, for example, one of the boards has you going through a haunted house ride, and all the time you are being attacked by zombies and bats and different creatures of the night, ghosts, ghouls, skeletons, that sort of affair. And while a lot of them do have projectile weapons, most of them are get into your face and try to punch you sort of affair. Uh, which brings the action right up to you. The graphics are, I mean, by today's standards, they're obviously downgraded from 98, but they are still good and they are incredibly gory, much like something people are probably more familiar with, say, House of the Dead. You can shoot body parts and skin off of your victims. So you can get nice chunky headshots that will take off, say, the left side of the face and whatnot. A very brutal game. And it is uh, a highlight, in my opinion, to have that sort of interaction with the monsters because unfortunately, the environment that you play in has very little interactiveness. If you remember a couple weeks back, Aaron, we took a look at Lethal Enforcers,
Yeah.
where Lethal Enforcers had tons of background interactions where you could shoot glass, you could shoot bells off of walls, you could shoot tires of cars, and all that had almost like a shooting gallery type effect. One thing Carnival was downed on by critics and fans alike really is almost none of the backgrounds in Carnival are interactive. And that was actually due to the way they made their graphics. They kind of had them set in stone from the beginning. There are some interactive elements, but they're actually hard to find and not rewarding to shoot. Um, but back to the haunted house level. So you go into the haunted house, and instead of getting on the ride, which would be cool, you do eventually get on it for a little while. You actually are walking through the haunted house ride. Uh, Enemies everywhere. The game has sub bosses. I believe the sub boss for this particular stage is like a chain gun guy, hand for hand.
Ham
Yeah,
bone. Ham
in
bone.
fact, he's on the screen right now.
Yeah.
His hand is a chain gun that shoots skeletons. And then each stage has an end boss. Fun little fact about the end bosses of this game, Aaron. Did you know Carnival censored itself before it ever made it to the arcades? And it censored itself by one of its bosses. and that is the baby. In one of the levels, your end boss, you can either fight a giant baby, or if the dip switches are changed, instead of fighting a baby, you fight a teddy bear.
Yeah, I saw
And
both.
they did that because this was one of the early games to have an ESRB rating. So, or it was around, in that time period where all that with Mortal Kombat and stuff had gone down, and they were actually censoring themselves to have that as an optional boss, because they thought shooting the baby, especially in the way you shoot it, because you shoot off parts of its face and parts of its body, even though the baby is gargantuan, right? I mean, it's 40 foot tall, so
He's
it's
a
not like
devil
you're,
baby. He's
yeah.
Rosemary's Baby.
But it was controversial enough with people on the team that they had that as an option to not have to fight that baby. And it was a teddy bear. I believe the teddy bear was actually the default. So you
It's
had
like
to.
it's a mechanical teddy bear. I believe it comes out of a big box or coffin, comes lumbering out. Something like you'd see it like a, like a one of those animatronic deals. That's what it looked like to
Correct.
me.
Correct. So they did hold back a little bit in the uh, gory part of the game by having an optional to not have to shoot and kill a baby. Now, Aaron, when you played through this, obviously with unlimited money, the game becomes uh, incredibly easy, as with any of these gun games did.
Yeah.
But on your time, because I know you've played this in the arcade,
Yes.
do you think it was cheap? Do you think that the hits were over the top?
Yes. Especially as you get into it, but even at the beginning, it's pretty cheap. Uh, uh, you know, I guess you're asking me what I think, or to go on about this. This game came out. Of course, this is your straight up on the rails shooter. I mean, there's no bones about that.
Absolutely.
And the graphics are like they come out in a pre-rendered pattern, and you shoot the guys. It's the same. It's Area 51 type game, stuff like that. Like you said, the Aerosmith game. There's a lot of these. This game had a stylized arts graphic style,
Yes,
and
it's all CGI.
yeah, and I didn't like it. In fact, I don't like this game. I never liked it. I
Really?
never liked this game. Yeah,
You didn't think this was stylized?
it was. I did think it was stylized. I just didn't like the style.
Okay.
It's
Okay, that's
it's
fair.
I just don't like the way the graphics look. And if you compare this to like a House of the Dead, it's funny. House of the Dead graphically, especially the first one, was not as well done as this in terms of. I mean, the
Not
graphics
even
are
close.
the fidelity is not as good, but I think that's a much more fun game than this, because it feels less raily for starters, but also it just
Well, it had multiple paths.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also
House of the
it
Dead
just
does.
felt better to me. Like this game, I mean, listen, these get sorts of games, you know what you're getting when you put your money down. So I'm not going to sit here and kill it. It's just the whole the premise of it, the haunted carnival thing, and the shooting. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are parts of this that are pretty funny. You get to a point where you're shooting mimes and you're shooting all this crazy
Yeah.
clowns and stuff. It's pretty wacky, But I guess there's some dark humor in there, or whatever. But it just for me, I just didn't. I never liked it that much. I was a much bigger fan of the House of the Dead series than I was this. And I'll be honest, I didn't like the Aerosmith game either. And I know they didn't do this as an Atari game, but I also didn't like Area 51. To be honest with you, these games that are on, I just don't like them. I never liked them that much. And this is the one I probably of those bunch. I probably played this one the least, just because I didn't like the premise of it. But that much said, playing it this week, I mean, it's a fun shooting gallery. I had a little bit of trouble running this too. I had a
Oh
heck of a
yeah.
time
This
running this
is
at
the
home.
beast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and of course I had to use the mouse on it too. So yes, is it more fun with a gun? Yes, but I mean you could tell this whole game is straight up a money grab. I mean you don't really feel like you're getting anywhere most of the time. It's in terms of how long you get to play. They were after cash, but that much said, if you are into this theme, right, then this is a game that you'll probably enjoy. The closest thing I could think of to a theme like this would probably be a pinball machine, like Funhouse or something. I like that. Sometimes I could get into like the crazy carnival theme, but I don't know, for some reason this didn't do it. Now it also hasn't aged well. It's okay. Graphic, like I said, it looks better than a lot of these type of games did. It's just it's not for me. So I'm not gonna put it over too much. I'm not gonna bury it either. You may dig it. In terms of the control and stuff, I mean, it's people throw stuff at you. You can shoot it. You can shoot them. You can shoot some guys over and over. You have to shoot them and find their weak point. They didn't reinvent the wheel either. I mean, would you say there's anything that was that original about this game? Like, I think House of the Dead did. It tried a lot of different stuff. Like this, pretty much, they didn't reinvent the wheel in this, did they?
Well, House of the Dead has a lot going for it.
Yeah,
It has multiple paths. It has people to save. It has items outside of just gun power ups. And like if you save someone, they might give you an item. And I always thought that was a very first of all rewarding.
yeah,
It felt rewarding to save the people. It made you want to save them instead of just let the zombies eat them.
yeah.
Uh, Carnevil has none of that.
I will say one
It
thing Carnevil does. Hey, I'm gonna put it over this one aspect before you go on. There are some scenes in this that are very clever that you wouldn't think of in the terms of a game like this. And I will give them credit. You can tell the guys at Midway, these guys aren't idiots and they're creative as heck. So stuff that happens at the big top and the haunted house and when you're running around the rides and stuff. I mean, there's some clever stuff in there that I enjoyed watching. We just saw something a second ago that I thought I got a kick out of when I played it, which was these guys chucking food and stuff at you at the concession stand.
yeah.
I thought that was pretty amusing stuff. So it's not like it's all garbage or something. There's some funny stuff in here. And despite the fact that it doesn't break any new ground, it does what it does well.
Well, it has if you're into the theme, which I enjoyed this theme. I thought the carnival theme was great.
The Christmas part's weird, although it does have Krampus. I'll give it that, but it's odd to put that in the middle of the game. I'm surprised you didn't pick this for your Christmas game, Brent. That's right up your alley.
We still have time.
Oh God.
But I think that environmentally speaking, I thought this is better than House of the Dead because House of the Dead you're in a house.
Oh, environmentally, yeah, okay.
The scenery never changes. You're going down hallways. You might
go
fall
into
into
go into
a
moat
sewer
and stuff,
system,
yeah.
crap like that. Whereas Carnevil, you get new environments every 4 or 5 minutes, and they feel different. They feel unique, and that is, in my opinion, by far its biggest selling point.
Yeah.
If you are good enough to stay alive to get through an area, there's something completely different waiting for you in the next scene. I think it has good enemy variety. I think it has fast-paced action, but every other aspect, I don't think the weapons are fun. You get like an acid gun. It's really about the only unique fun gun that you have access to, and of course you get it for maybe 15 shots and then it's gone.
Yeah. R2, that's one thing our games have in common. You get the special
Yeah.
weapons for like 2 seconds and then they're gone.
I don't think that the linearity of it is fun. It's definitely something where you can memorize where things are. In fact, the going through the haunted house mission was something I could do absolutely every time I played it in the arcade there for a while because I knew where every single enemy was.
Mm.
So if that's your bag, if memorizing where the enemies are, and some people really dig that, this game definitely has that in spades.
Yeah. It would probably help a lot to do that if you could. If you could remember.
Well, I mean, to beat it, you pretty much have to, unless you're just gonna money sink it. Now, Aaron, how well do you think this did for Midway compared to other games that came out at the time? And for other games that came out in the time, I really mean Mortal Kombat 4.
Well, we know. Well, Mortal Kombat 4 was a dud, and I don't.
It was a dud.
I'm
but
sure
you
it
have
got
to
widely.
remember,
Yeah, it was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, and Mortal Kombat 3 was a hugely successful game. More so much so as they made Mortal Kombat 3 Ultimate, which was also a hugely successful game.
Well, I remember on the Mortal Kombat show we did on Amigos. I believe they said that uh, MK2 shipped. I think it was what was it 20,000 units or something like that, and so which was unbelievable. So I would say this
Yeah,
probably shipped say 5,000 units. Let's say.
I don't have ship numbers for that. I'll see if I can pull that up real quick.
Yeah.
Uh, but it outsold Mortal Kombat 4.
Well,
That I do know.
Mortal Kombat 4 landed like a rock. And because it
But you
was,
have to remember,
I know it's Mortal Kombat.
people bought Mortal Kombat 4 before they knew what Mortal Kombat 4 was going to
Well,
be.
think about this for a minute. Mortal Kombat 4 was so bad that this outsold it, which that tells you something right there. That's when
But
your
this,
series has gone off the rails big
but
time.
this sold a batch, right?
Yeah.
And then they made more and sold that batch, and then they made more. This was one of the games that they kept getting requests for from arcades.
Yeah.
And this was something that you saw in a lot of bars.
Yeah.
You
Pizza
saw it
places. Yeah.
bowling alleys, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
I did see this. It was there was this was one of the ones in that era that you saw a lot of. In fact, I saw
yeah,
way more of this in MK4. That's for darn sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Something else about this game, Aaron.
Yeah.
There's some hidden aspects to the game, hidden away from the prying eyes from the normal public. This has a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer in it, and Jeffrey Dahmer
Uh,
is holding a paper bag, and
yeah.
inside that paper bag is the head of Neil Nicastrio, who was the executive producer and CEO of Midway at the time.
Why and why did they do that?
I It's highly up to debate whether he knew, the executive producer knew that it was in the game.
Uh-huh.
Um, Most people believe that he did know about it and that they used it as a placeholder graphic for some of the, until some of the other graphics were complete. Uh, Still kinda strange to have such a, uh, unse un popular character as a placeholder graphics for your game.
Well, I would say that was in the and this is coming from me when I say this. That was in the poorest of taste. Very
I
stupid. So it's not something you can access in the actual game.
They're correct.
Okay. Is the
The
graphics still in the programming? Could you look at it if you like
Yes, yeah. You can pull up a picture of it right now if you wanted to.
those
Yeah.
idiots? What the heck were they thinking?
Did you also, Aaron? Have you ever heard of the Carnevil cult?
No.
All right. Now this is way off the rails.
All
This
right.
is almost certainly uh internet rumor, internet fed propaganda, as it were. But there is a rumor that two of the people who worked on Carnevil were members of a cult, and they were trying to use their position inside of the company to spread their cult's message throughout video games. Um, and it was they had positions of some power, but they were trying to have messages and imagery added to the game that they felt would further their cult's uh uh stranglehold on people. This is bad. This is bad cult. Bad people cult.
This is the goofiest trivia I've ever heard. So you're telling
I,
me a cult trying to program in mind altering content to get you to
no,
get into the
no,
cult?
that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I
Okay.
said two members of what is now commonly known as the Carnevil cult. They weren't known that previously
I
to this
gathered that, yeah.
interaction, but they were trying to manipulate people at Midway. They worked for Midway and were trying to manipulate the powers to be to add aspects into the game that would positively reflect recruitment for their cult. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's goofy.
If you
That is goofy.
Now, do I believe this is true? No. I think this is uh internet fun time, but it came up on message boards. And if you would like to learn more, you can just search for the Carnevil cult and read all about it.
I like
It's
this
a
game less than when we started this review. The more you tell me, the less I like this game.
so
That is some dumb stuff right there.
so in closing, uh I actually am not a huge fan of Carnevil. I think for what it did at the time, being a kind of gross out horror based shooting game, uh, I think it did fine. And I think it ages well, but I never thought it was terribly fun at the peak of its excitement, at the peak of its entertaining values. I don't think it was fun past, say, a 6 out of 10. What do you think?
Well, I think I made my feelings on this abundantly clear, but we do have a review sent in to sound off. Now, granted, I'm sure they didn't know about the cult or the head in the bag, but we'll go ahead and read it anyway. It's our good buddy Pajako 6502. He says, "So I'll own up and say that I didn't get. Oh, whoops! I'm reading the wrong one here. Let's try that again. Now I know arcade games are designed to take money and make money, but this thing is not just a quarter muncher. It has a quarter eating disorder. That's true. The game is a fun and grotesque light gun shooter from the late 90s, incredibly fast paced, and you need lightning quick reflexes to play through this and still be financially solvent at the end. Bonus textures on the screen for seconds, and with only 6 bullets and many enemies taking more than that to take down, you'll be reloading every other second." That's true. I meant to bring that up. Like, that's ridiculous. You have to pump a ton of lead in some of these guys. Anyway, and often, unless you are quick, you will be attacked before you can get a kill in. The levels are incredibly short, too, completable in under 10 minutes each. The boss battles are fun, but there seem to be no points where you will take damage no matter what you do. I couldn't figure a way not to take damage. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. But I really would like to give this a go with an actual light gun. Carnevil is worth playing, as you can get through it quick, plus it's novel, but really, for me, it's no Desert Island Disc. 6 out of 10. P.S. I could not get my sending light gun to work with this. By the way, I didn't even try to send, and I had trouble getting the game to run, period.
This was Mouse City.
Yeah. I don't suppose you looked to what these cabinets are going for these days, did you? I'd kind of be wondering if they sold say 3,000 or 4,000. I don't know. Everything is so haywire these days when it comes to pricing. And also, if these things sold in kits, you're going to have a lot. I'd wager, from looking at the cabinet on this, they probably converted a lot of old Mortal Kombats and the like, because Midway had a kind of a cabinet design that they went with for a lot of their games, and I'd say this kit would probably fit most of those cabinets.
You can pick up a restored Carnevil with the shotguns for a cool $2,700.
No, thank you. I wouldn't spend that much money on this game. No way, no how.
I think that is. I wouldn't either, but I think that is a fairly decent price. You can get just the board for $400.
But no guns. Then you have to go down that road.
Just the board.
Yeah, those kids pretty pricey. I don't know. Hey, if Carnevil was your bag, I know they had home ports of this.
They did not have home ports of this.
Oh, I thought this did get home ports.
This never got ported to a home system.
Live and learn.
It was slated to.
Yeah.
But it never got put on any of the home systems.
You'd think as popular as it was, this would have been ported over. I'm thinking 98. What would this have been ported to? Dreamcast? Maybe?
Yeah.
That's pretty well into the PlayStation era. So I don't know. Well, there you go. Interesting that it didn't get ported over. Well, thanks a lot there, Brent. That's an interesting look at that one. And I had played that one, so I went with another direction this week. It's funny what gets you to where you're going. So I was really struggling. I almost picked Friday 13th, the multiplayer game, and I thought that's going to be, I didn't know. And so I thought I'm going to go the other direction and play something pretty old. And so I went into the realm of DOS. You know, we haven't been to DOS for a while. And I just listened to Fine and Tandy. He'd been playing some DOS stuff. I was like, I'm going to try something in DOS. And I remembered a game that had a guy called Halloween Harry in it. And I thought that might be fun. It's an Apogee game. So I went back to look about that game. But that game actually is more about aliens than it is Halloween based. And so I thought, let's see what else Apogee had in the catalog from back in the day. And I found something that actually fit the bill. And so I went ahead and picked, Monster Bash. Monster Bash. I'd never played this game.
The DOS version.
The DOS version, correct. This
Yes.
is the Genesis version. This was developed and published by Apogee back in the day. Released April 9th, 1993. Of course, Apogee eventually became what is now we would call 3D Realms. This game, in terms of where it appears, it's listed as DOS, of course, Linux, Macintosh, and Windows. I don't know if I don't think this had a Linux port or a Macintosh port, but I think what they mean is you can play these with DOSBox on Linux and Mac. It did have a new, like an HD Steam release version of this that apparently just came out. So you could also play it on Steam. I went and played it with the original DOS version of this thing. I didn't want to mess around. So I played the original DOS version. This is a game designed by Frank Madden. Now, if you've heard that name before, he's sort of well known for games like this. He did a game called Crystal Caves, which is sort of like this. He also did a game called Shadow Warrior, which I used to play back in the day. He did Realms of Chaos and Brute Force. He also had help on this. The graphics on this were done by Amanda D, who worked on basically the same games, plus a few other ones that you've heard of, like Bad Blood, Ultima False Prophet. The music on this was done by Rob Wallace. This is a guy I also hadn't heard of, but he worked on tons of stuff. I guess mostly on the DOS system, including remember the Mario educational titles from back in the DOS days?
Mm-hmm.
He worked on all those, the Tom Brady football. He worked on Al Qadim, the D&D, the Arabic D&D game for DOS. And this was produced by George Broussard, who's well known for the long, drawn-out Duke Nukem misadventure that pretty much ruined him. But he produced some good stuff, including Rise of the Triad, Shadow Warrior, Prey, Max Payne. So a lot of good stuff.
Absolutely.
I noticed that the level design was credited to an outside source called Dragon's Eye Productions. So I'll try to look into that. I'm not exactly sure what was going on. I don't know if they just professionally designed levels. I'm not sure what the scoop is on that. In case you're wondering, this would run on DOS. You had to have at least DOS 4. They recommended 6.2. You had to have at least an Intel 286 with 640K of memory, and it took up 5.8 megabytes on a hard drive. This was an EGA game. It's funny because they recommend VGA for some reason. I don't know why, but they did. So I thought that was kind of strange. Just a little bit about the game itself. So why would I pick an EGA game? Well, this fellow's games actually have a pretty good rep. Have you heard of this guy? Frank here. Is this a guy? Because I don't know if you played a bunch of these games back in the day, but had you heard of this guy? His rep, Frank Madden?
No. This was before my time of following individuals.
Yeah. So, in this game, Monster Bash, you play Johnny Dash. Johnny Dash is a little kid in footie pajamas and a red hat. Your dog is captured by, and a bunch of other pets are captured by the game's main villain, Count Chuck. And what you have to do is basically go and free all the pets that Count Chuck has kidnapped. Now, you've got a couple friends. one thing about these old Apogee games, I guess we should get into this before we really get into the game proper. When you, because a lot of people, I guess, would not know this, Apogee had a real interesting way of distributing their games. They would upload like playable levels of their games to BBSs, and then you could download them. And BBSs were more than happy to carry them because people wanted to download games. And trust me, when you were back in the day when you were on BBS and you downloaded a game, it was almost always crap unless it was pirated. So BBSs left at the chance to have good games on their site that were also legal. And so Apogee took advantage of that. And that was their business model. So built into the game, built into pretty much all their games, are not just the game itself, but instructions, backstories. This game has on the main menu. There's a ton of options, including a full backstory with illustrations. It goes on for page after page, probably 15 pages of backstory, and images of the backstory. And a lot of their games are like that. They'll also have play instructions. It's very cool, and also they'll have ordering instructions to order the full releases of the games. They had a good gimmick. The gimmick would be you could play episode 1, for example, which is a fully fleshed out game, but the game would be traditionally 3 episodes long, and so you had to order episodes 2 and 3. And so even at the end of this game, it's shilling for you to order the other episodes because that's how they get paid. They're not, this is a shareware game, but they want you to buy the full game. And it was a pretty successful model doing this. People would play these games and get addicted to them, and then they would mail in. So the backside of that is when you get one of these Apogee games like this, it's very rare that you're going to find a boxed version of this, because often they would just send you out discs, with the episodes on them. They wouldn't send you a boxed version, because in some instances there wasn't even a boxed version of the game. So, and in this case, in a lot of cases, when you see games like this with boxes, it's because the game was picked up by somebody who, well after the fact, and was selling the entire thing, after the game had been out forever, or they were literally selling you the shareware version, which that happens too. So sometimes you'll get these boxes that have like one episode, one disc in them, and then that's what you'll be getting. And so that was sort of the way they distributed these games. It worked well for Apogee, and it worked well for some of the other players that were doing it that way. So anyway, getting back to this game. So like I said, you're out to rescue your pet, and you're rescuing him over 28 horror-themed levels. Horror-themed. And that means they've got graveyards, and you've got skeletons and skulls and dungeons and that sort of stuff. This game is your basic, I would call it a puzzle platformer. You run your guy around, you jump. But the gimmick in this game is when you push up on the joystick or diagonally, you'll basically go in the slingshot mode, and then Johnny can shoot his slingshot, and he can shoot it. It's almost like a turrican style thing where you can basically aim your slingshot in different directions, and he can shoot diagonally, or he can shoot to the side. And I'll get into my thoughts on that here in a minute. But basically, that's your weapon. You'll occasionally come across things to augment your slingshot with like multiple shots and whatnot. The problem with that is, much like Brent's game, you get these things for like a limited amount of time, and they're almost effectively worthless. I mean, I hardly ever got to keep it for any amount of time. I don't know if there's some level in here that you get more time on them. Did you ever be able to keep those for any amount of time?
Well, most of them are shot based.
Right, but I mean, you shoot so much, they instantly deplete.
I found that the rockets usually stuck around long enough to be useful.
Yeah.
But I didn't conserve any other ammo type.
Right. So as you go through this game, like I said, there are 28 levels, and what you have to do, and this game is, in some ways, it's very European. It reminded me in some ways, because you don't just run through the game and complete the level. You've got to go through the game and find all the pets and free them from their cage, a la Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. If you play it in the arcade, you've got to find the caged animals, and then you've got to basically shoot the lock off, and the animal just runs off. These animals are scattered all over the place, and so the upside of that is you're going to have to explore the entire level to its fullest extent. There's no way to cheap your way through this thing. It requires you to go through a lot of exploring. As you explore, you'll run into various enemies and also stuff like fire and spikes by the bushel. And you also see these skulls laying around with these eyeballs in them. Those are for points. When you shoot them, they explode and scream. They're all over the place, too, these things. There's also stuff like bats. It's the stuff you would expect. There were tons of skeletons and skulls, ghosts, all that stuff. The stuff you would expect in a horror game. As you go through the game, you will occasionally come across basically an effigy of your character hanging off a pole. That's called a voodoo doll. When you collect one of those, you will get an extra man. You'll also occasionally see hearts. When you get those, you will get extra health. You've got a health meter in the upper left-hand corner that tells you what you've got to go through. Your slingshot has unlimited ammo, so you can shoot it as much as you want. But like I said, when you get the special slingshots, you will have limited time. The special slingshots include bigger rocks, multiple rocks, as Brent mentioned, missiles, and also at some point you get fireballs as well. As you go through the levels, eventually you will come to a little boss, a gimmick that you have to go through. But the levels in this are incredibly long. You're not going to go through these levels in 2 or 3 minutes. They take a good while. And when you're exploring, it takes even longer because the levels you're underground, you're in the air, you're on top of trees. You can go anywhere, and often the levels will direct you to places you didn't know you could go in the first place, and they'll be over top places you've been. So if you make a misstep or something, it's that old gimmick where you fall down, have to kind of retrace your steps back to where you fell from. Not my favorite. I noticed in this game that there are a lot of blind jumps. I was surprised by that until I read the docs, because I thought to myself, this is some really bad level design, and I still think it's bad. But they did put the ability, I didn't even know this, maybe you did, Brent. If you hit page up or down, you could actually look down or up the level. Did you know about that?
I did not.
Yeah, and that, because I'm sure you had the same problem I did with the levels, that you couldn't see what was going on with the levels because there was tons and tons of blind jumps in this. So that was probably an aspect that I wish maybe they would have, I don't know, done a better job of fleshing out. There's tons of confusing stuff in this. You've got to really pay attention because sometimes you need to move blocks, shoot blocks around. Some things you need to, there are special ways to jump to get the stuff. I'm not going to say this has pixel perfect jumps, but they're
not
close.
Even close.
Well,
no, it's not. No, I completely disagree.
Hold on.
With that.
Can I finish now? What I'm saying is they're not. It's not what I would call It's not called. It's not super pixel perfect jumps, but there are jumps that are difficult, and their jumps are compounded with the control scheme, and that's the main thing I want to talk about is the control scheme in this. I
disagree with that. By the way,
I hate the control scheme. You're wrong. I hate the control scheme in this. I mean, it made the game. It killed the game for me. The way you control your character. Like I said, your slingshot comes on when you turn up on certain levels on the joystick, and it happens over and over where I accidentally fire up the stupid slingshot when I was trying to do something like jump. It happened to me over and over. Another problem this guy has is jumping off of ladders. That is an unbelievably difficult thing to do, and no matter how much I tried, I could never practice enough to get proficient at it. I mean, I could do it eventually, but it was difficult as heck for me to jump off of ladders, climbing up stuff. And I'm not the only person. I looked at a lot of people playing this that had the exact same problem I did. It took me a long time to get fairly proficient at running around and using the slingshot in this game, and it never felt comfortable to me when I was doing it.
I think we might have played two different games.
I suppose. Well, I don't know.
Okay, keep going.
I'm not done yet. This game, of course, is 16-color EGA with ad-lib compatible music. I thought the music was pretty good in this, all things considered. I'm not a fan of ad-lib. I know there's this weird, I don't know, fascination, or maybe it's just nostalgia about going back to the glory days of ad-lib. The glory days of ad-lib there were no glory days of ad-lib. Ad-lib was better than nothing, but it wasn't much better. So the music in this, with that said, I thought they did a pretty good job with the tunes. EGA 16-color isn't great, but I thought the graphics were really good, given what they had to work with. It looks like EGA, don't get me wrong, but it looks a lot better than a lot of games in EGA. So I thought given the limitations of what they had to work with, they did the best that they could with the music and the sound on this and the graphics. But it still has that kind of DOSy look. I know a lot of people like these sorts of games from that era, the DOS era, Commander Keen and Jill of the Jungle and stuff. These sort of like platform DOS games. I was never a fan of these. I always thought, I mean, if you consider this came out in '93, like the Amiga had stuff that was just blowing this out of the water in terms of the graphics and the sound. But if you had a DOS machine, this is all you had access to. I'd say this you'd be pretty happy with the way it looks. I'm not sure you'd be happy with the way it played because I know I was not happy with the way it played at all. I will say just a few little wacky tidbits about this game because it did do some stuff that was a little bit different. There's a knock in here where he in the opening story, if you read the story that's built into the game, where he takes a shot at Jill of the Jungle, which is a character from Epic. That was like one of their competitors at the time. I don't know if you ever played Jill of the Jungle, Brent.
I know of, yeah,
yeah.
I know of the game.
There was a VGA version of this plan, but it was canceled because I just never got around to finishing it, which is weird. The game was released at the time. It was the first 1 meg, basically 1 meg compressed Apogee game ever. So this was at the time, which was the biggest game they'd released, which is kind of neat. Brent, you've been butting in this entire time. Tell me to go ahead, and I'm going to give you the floor. Tell me what you thought of this bad boy.
This game is terrific.
Okay.
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about with the control schemes.
Yeah.
I had no trouble. Now the jump is floaty.
Did you play this on the keyboard or mouse or the joystick?
Keyboard.
Okay, see that might be the difference. I played this with an analog joystick.
That's dumb.
Well, no, that's what it is. It's yeah. What are you talking about? It had built-in controls. Go ahead.
Yeah. You play this with a keyboard. You have because I had a jump button and a shoot button.
Right.
So when I wanted to jump, I just hit the jump button and my guy jumped. So that's why I got completely confused where you're talking about you couldn't jump off ladders or whatever.
Oh yeah, I had all kinds of trouble. In fact, I was looking at some forum posts. That's one of the knocks against this game is the control scheme and jumping straight off of ladders on the platforms. Listen, I think this game would be 100% better if the controls weren't as crappy. All right, I will say that. I mean, I thought there was a lot to like about this game.
The controls aren't crappy.
Well, they were on the analog joystick. That's all I can tell you.
Anyway, back to you not butting in.
I owed you.
The game is for EGA. The graphics are amazing. They're flipping amazing. They're big. Even though there's a lot of grays and browns due to the just the theming of the game, you're in caves, you're in graveyards, you're in old haunted houses, that sort of affair. They have enough burst of color, and there's enough things that have color, boxes, for example, or stalactites and stalagmites, plant life, that the color on this game is nice. I'm not saying it's great, but for 16 wonderful magical colors, it's pretty amazing that they were able to pull this kind of graphic appearance off.
I agree. I also think that the use of the way your character looks with the blonde and the red, it really stands out against some of the more stark backgrounds, and that was by design, I'm sure, and it works well. It actually makes your character stand out quite nicely.
And it makes you the innocent, outside, cheerful, hope for the world type feel, and when all of your enemies are very gloom and doom and gray and ugly feel. So graphically, stupendous. Sound wise, it has digitized voices in it.
Yes.
That they don't overdo. But there's enough of it in there. Little things the kid screams. He screams "Yeppy" and "Wahoo" and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I think the music I mean, it is ad lib. I'm not a huge ad lib for life type of guy, but I think it does well with what it has.
Yeah.
Um,
Clever arrangements too. I thought they were
yes,
very clever. Like whoever the guy that worked on this music, I'm going to give the guy another shout out. Rob Wallace. Like you could tell by the amount of stuff this guy done. He didn't just fall off the turnip truck. This guy could lay down some tunes, and they're good tunes in here.
I think the difficulty you can play this on easy, medium, or hard, and the only difference is how much health you have.
Yeah,
Easy, you get 9 health. Medium, you get 6. Hard, you get 3. There's no reason to ever play this game on any difficulty but easy.
yeah,
And it's not because it's not that it makes the game easy. It's that it makes the game enjoyable. Because if you only had 3 hits, there are segments of this game that would be ridiculously difficult.
yeah. Because there's a lot of
I
cheap. There's a lot of cheap hits in this. Lots of them.
Yeah. And for the record, I did not play through the entire game.
Oh gosh, no.
Uh, but I did play through several worlds.
You get a goodly amount
Uh,
of men, and you can actually store up to 5 extra men. So they will say I did like that too. They give you a goodly amount of like I got to see a good chunk of the game without having to cheat or anything.
right. Um, Difficulty wise, due to level design, it's cheap.
Yeah,
Uh, and probably for different reasons than what you're thinking, Aaron. I did not like that they had so many things uh, appearing from the background. For example, skeletons jumping from the background, say a wall, and hitting your character, or coming up from the ground and hitting your character, snakes and whatnot.
yeah.
If it was an occasional gimmick, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But they rely on it way too
The
much.
snakes are
Um,
particularly cheap, but they shoot out
well,
with their heads. I hated that.
if and also there's no way they give no tells, like I guess I should say they give too many tells, because they have places that are marked for a snake to jump out, even if there's not a snake there to jump out, and then they just plaster that everywhere, so it's not marking anything because it's marked everywhere.
Yeah,
If that makes any
no, it
sense.
does. I agree. I
Um,
agree with that assessment. Yeah,
I think the slingshot controls are tremendously good. I could always uh, hit where I wanted. The bullets reflect, and that is sometimes used in puzzles
yeah,
where you will shoot forward, hit a wall, and it will bounce off that wall back at you under the platform you're standing on to ultimately hit your target. The locks that you have to shoot for the to let the animals out of their cages are small, but I always could get them in a relatively small amount of shots, which made me feel good. It made me feel accomplished when I was able to pull it off, which was every time. I didn't have a problem with it. Um, I think the level design is decent. There are definitely a few things that they like. There are items that you can get that are level specific. Where, for example, you have to get a bottle and then take the bottle to a water source, and then you use the water from the bottle to make vines grow. But it's that shtick for one level, and then you never hear of the bottle or water source again. It's one and done.
I just saw a secret. I'm watching this video as you're talking. I just saw a secret path I didn't know about.
Or
It's right at the beginning. I'm like, no.
there's yeah, there's tons of that kind of
I
stuff.
usually would just
Tons
stumble
of
into them. Yeah,
fantasy walls. Just
yeah,
walls that aren't really there.
yeah,
And it's not that I mind that kind of stuff. I really don't, especially when it's not something that hinders progress. But when you have something that is only valid for one level, the game does not do a good job of introducing the concept to you. And I say that because it doesn't introduce the concept to you at all. So you are struggling to find what the piece of the puzzle you need to continue on, until you just stumble upon it. You have no idea what you're looking for. Once you get the first part of it, for example, the bottle, puzzle, I guess you could call it. Once you get the bottle, it says, "Hey, like you should put some water in this or something to that extent."
Yeah.
And then once you put water in, it's like, "Hey, maybe this can make those plants grow or something like that."
Yeah.
But the initial find the bottle thing is never explained. So I didn't like that about the level design. The blind jumps, I never had a big problem with because there are I don't think any that I experienced. That there might be some in the game,
Oh,
but
there
there
are.
aren't uh, uh, bottomless pits where you instantly die. The spikes
Yes, there
and
are.
stuff
There's spikes at the
are
bottom
there?
of pits that'll kill you instantly when you fall down. There's tons of
Okay,
them.
well, not in, no, 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 no. I said bottomless pits that have nothing.
Oh no, you'll die. There's a
Yeah,
bottom. It's full of
because I mean, you
spikes.
can, yeah, the spiked pits though you can see. You can see the top of the
Not
spikes.
always. You
Um,
can't. We
yeah,
just saw
okay.
screens on here where you couldn't because they're right at the beginning of the game. There are tons of them. There's tons
I
of
disagree.
places.
Um, the damage to health that they give is fair. There's enough health upgrades that you can usually keep going, at least for the levels that I played. Um, but I don't think the level design is anything tremendous, but I think
No.
it keeps you moving. I think it keeps you moving. Um, Other fun aspects of the game, excuse me. Uh, the slingshot feels fun. I had a lot of fun aiming it up, aiming it to where it would bounce off things. I think there's ample targets. Uh, Not only enemies but hazards. You can shoot hazards. Uh, like for example, spear tips, so that once you shoot the tips off the spears, they can't hurt you anymore. That sort of feel. I had a lot of fun with this game. I think this is something that if I had played in my childhood, I would have completely dug and probably played through the shareware multiple times because that's what I did back in the day. I never had the full game, but I would play the first level ad nauseum. Doom, perfect example of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, try to get it
The
perfect on it.
the theme of saving the pets, perfect. It's a perfect theme for the game because you are set out to be this innocent child. Something that's fun that the game does is at the end of each level, it has him working out and doing these ridiculous feats of strength.
One-handed
Uh,
push-ups, one-arm pull-ups, and you move
yeah,
on from there.
lifting hundreds of pounds at a time. I really, really enjoyed this game. I obviously I enjoyed it way more than you did.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, listen, the game's not perfect. Even if I had perfect controls, the controls killed it for me. I will say I did not try the keyboard. That may have been the way to go. But I mean, hey, I got a joystick. I want to play the joystick, and I did not like the joystick controls. Um, this game is considered, I would say, one of it would consider one of Frank Mann's not as popular games as the other stuff he did. I mean, but
well,
there's
yeah,
still a lot of.
he did some incredible stuff.
Well, there's a lot of one thing I could say about the game. It's you could tell they put a lot of charm and thought into it. I mean, the graphics, the way things are set up, it's for fun. So it's definitely not a bad game. It's just like I said, the controls killed it for me. And then there's some other just stuff. But because so I'm not as fond of these games where you have to go hunting around for stuff. But that's sort of the way you did it back in the day because you had to
Well, I now
get a lot out
see
of the level.
you say that, but from what I experienced, outside of what I mentioned, for example, saying knowing that you had to find a bottle, uh, that aspect of it I didn't like. But I never had problem finding all the
Oh
pets.
gosh, I did. I look all over for those stupid things.
Really,
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
never once got to the end of a level outside of the first time when I absolutely didn't understand the aspects of the game. I never once got to the end of a level and it said, "Hey, you didn't find all the pets."
Oh yeah. Well, no, it just won't. Yeah, I mean, you won't let you leave, so you've got to
Yeah, but that's
find
what
them.
that's the
Yeah.
message it gives you.
Um.
I didn't run into that. I
Well,
didn't run into that.
I did. I looked at some critical reviews on this. There were actually quite a few. ASM, which I believe is, I think it might be German. They give this a 9 out of 12 or 75%. Retro Spirit Games gave this a 65%. PC Joker, they hate everything. They give this a 52%. Dragon Magazine had a look at this thing in its 200th issue, and they gave it 3 out of 5. So I would call these middling to low ratings for this one. I looked this on eBay. The discs alone were going $38 or best offer. I did see a 5.5-inch version of this disc that was going for $5. And box copy, I saw it one going for $25. The boxes, again, your mileage is going to vary on these things, considering, because there may not have ever been a proper box copy of this from Apogee. I don't know if there was or not. I saw a lot of the ones that were like the public domain box copy. Back in the day, public domains were sold in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And so you could, and so sometimes you would, but just buy discs. But occasionally they would sell the box versions and stuff. I mean, when I went to computer shows, there was all kinds of people selling every conceivable thing. So a lot of people, like in China and stuff, would make stuff for them. So who knows? But I saw 2 official, sort of unofficial boxes for this. We did get a review for this one, and it was also from our good buddy Pajako, who chimed in. He says, so I'll own up to it and say I didn't get on with the EGA version of this because the screen was so cluttered. It was difficult to see what was going on a lot of the time. I switched to the HD remaster, which we mentioned on Steam, which retains all the game's playability while adding slightly smoother visuals. Monster Bash is one of those games where I would have totally loved this back in the day, and I am almost disappointed. I'm only learning about this now. This is not a game for dashing around. This is a careful tippy-toe exploration game. Not so much a run and gun, more a creep and catapult game. Monster Bash is an excellent but slightly flawed platform exploration puzzle game that would not have been out of place on a console. There is lots of humor, varying gameplay mechanics, and the whole thing oozes Halloween cheesiness. It is great. It is a little glitchy here and there. The only real thing that lets this one down are the cheap tricks where you take damage because you don't know the map. Using look up and look down helps, but it isn't a fail-safe solution. I only almost made it to the end of episode 1 in my, wow, you got further than me in my playthrough, and I really hope to get back to it at some point. Play the HD remaster for the better experience, but do go and play it 9 out of 10. So actually, maybe that might be the way to go. I didn't see what this was going for on Steam, but that might be the way to go on this one, because maybe they've also worked out the issue with the controls, which again, that was what really. And the thing is, to be on the safe side,
I'm telling you, man, the controls was you.
I tried multiple controllers, and it was no good. I'm just telling you, it didn't work well for me. I don't know what to tell you. You didn't use the controller, use the keyboard. It's different. That's all I can tell you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just use keyboard. This is going for a $5 on Steam.
There you go, $5, probably worth your Halloween buck. And this is a little bit gory, but I think you can get your kid of a certain age to play
no,
this
is
one.
kid friendly. It's very cartoony. It's not cartoony.
I will say at the very beginning of this, in the credits, there's a great bit where the zombie shoots out and pukes up the name of the design, which I did find that highly amusing. Yeah, I'm not panning this. I think if you get your controls lined out, I mean, it's got problems of that era, but overall, I call it a pretty big winner. You know what else I call?
No, this is definitely something, guys. You should go and play and give a look.
You know what else I call a pretty big winner of the Brent? And
I'm going to assume me.
No, absolutely not. But it is, bam, our good buddy Frank over at Retro Rewind. Frank and Jason and all the gang at Retro Rewind. Listen, do you have a classic Commodore computer sitting around the house? Do you have a classic TRS-80 color computer 2, 3, 1, any of those? If you do, then you need to head on over to RetroRewind.ca. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. You can augment these computers with incredible peripherals that will make them 10 times more fun and 20 times more usable. Do you need accelerator card for your Amiga 600? They've got them at RetroRewind.ca. Do you need an SDC SD card solution for your Commodore 64 or a TRS-80 color computer? He's got them.
Or even your Coco. Bam.
That is the TRS-80 color computer, you knucklehead.
Oh, I thought you just said Commodore 64.
You're a doofus.
Sorry.
See, my God, if Frank could sell me something to upgrade Brent, we'd be laughing. This guy's falling into disrepair. He needs his caps changed big time. Speaking of changing your caps, are you the kind of person that gets in there and changes caps out yourself? Hey, beautiful. Frank's got you covered because he sells cap kits for all these systems, and they're top quality caps. None of this run-of-the-mill garbage you get at a lot of places. You can trust the stuff he sells. Look into the people that use his stuff. People like Chris Edwards, people like Tin Mark use his service. Big-time players. These guys aren't like me and Boat where they don't fool with hardware. These guys are into it big time. Frank takes care of it, Brent. That's Frank at RetroRewind.ca. Top shelf service and top shelf parts for your classic Commodore and Coco machines. Bam.
If your system's been bashed, send it to Frank.
I thought you were going to rob something. So it's more like if your system has been bashed, send it to Frank and send some cash. There you go. So, with all that said, it's wheel time. Now, last week we actually picked the Retro Rewind piece as our piece. So this week I've added chat choice, the dreaded chat choice. So people in chat, be ready. If this comes up on the wheel, it's going to be your responsibility to take care of us and give us something good that the people love. Are you ready for the big spin, the Brent?
Yeah, but I know you're going to disappoint me.
Here we go! A beautiful, massive, manly spin by me.
It's already done.
And the winner is Europe Only Releases. Europe Only Releases. This is a request from our own good pal, Super Tech Boy. Brent, do you want to set any ground rules for this one? European only releases. Now, we did a European only release, believe it or not. I don't know if we ever did that. I recall doing a game for the 32X that was a European only release. I don't think that was the category. So this probably is the first time we've done this. I don't think we should. I think we should just leave it wide open.
Okay.
Just wide open. That's what I think we should do. So that's what we're going to get into for sure next week. We normally will film on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're a little bit late this week because the Brent's been sick. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we go. The Brent. Of course, you know, Halloween is upon us, and
yes.
In fact, as we record this, it's only a few days until Halloween, and you know what happens on the Amigos Retro Game channel when Halloween comes around. It's a little thing I like to call...
You're going to take off your mask and show us your true form?
No, you don't want that. It's too horrific. But supplementary, slightly less horrific is Conversations from the Dark Side. I hope anyone within the realm of my voice will join us Friday night. That's Friday night, which is this Friday as we record this. It'll be the 28th of October, Friday night. Come over to the Amigos Retro Gaming Twitch channel, which you're watching this on right now if you're watching us live. And we will be bringing to you the scary, the horrific Conversations of the Dark Side with myself, along with everyone's favorite spooktacular host, Rob Flack O'Hara. And we're going to be presenting you with your stories, your horrific tales. It should be a lot of fun, Brent. I'm looking forward to it. Just doing it once a year, Brent, for this spectacular event. What do you think about Conversations from the Dark Side? You going to hop in there with a tale?
I'm going to try to accompany you in your spiritual, spooky journey. Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Very good. So please join us for that. Again, that will be Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also want to bill, I don't do this at all, but I'm going to plug this as well. Directly following Conversations with the Dark Side, we will be playing Vampire on the TeamSpeak Irregulars Twitch channel. Hosted by the TeamSpeak Irregulars. Their Twitch address is the TeamSpeak Irregulars, all one word. And I will be raiding that channel directly after Conversations with the Dark Side. The Vampire game, which is the role-playing game Vampire, live streamed, will start at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, directly after Conversations from the Dark Side. I'm going to go a couple more hours of Vampire after we get done with Conversations, because you know I'm going to get in on that. It should be a lot of fun. So if you're into role-playing online or just watching a bunch of goofs act stupid, whatever you like, this is the right channel for you. It should be a lot of fun. That'll be directly after Conversations of the Dark Side. I guess since I'm doing everything in reverse order, Also, join us for Amigos Friday night. That should be a lot of fun. We're looking at a CD-based Amiga title. That should be a lot of fun. I've been
Ooh.
playing it this week, and we'll be talking about that. That'll be kicking off at the usual 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you've got 5 p.m. Amigos, 8 p.m. Conversations of the Dark Side, and then 10 p.m. the TSI, T-Speaker Regulars Vampire Role-Playing Game, all for Halloween. Halloween! It should be a lot of fun. Anything to add, the Brent?
I believe that is all. Aaron, do you realize that you will be on the screen in living color Friday, Saturday, Sunday of this week? Doing it all, doing it all.
What am I doing on Saturday? Oh, yeah, we are doing something on Saturday. I forgot about that. You're right. Monday. I won't be on there Monday. Unless I
didn't
do
say
something.
Monday.
Oh, okay, good. That's trick or treat. That's where I'm taking the boy out.
Yeah.
The boy got one of those costumes where you're an alien that's kidnapping the kid. That shtick, I like those. All right, we're out of here. Everybody, have a joyous Halloween. If you don't catch us live Sunday, we'll be here one more time before Halloween, so we'll get to give them a full Halloween love. Until next time, be careful where you put that token. No good. Adios, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector style graphics and BartBit for our amazing music. Would you like to help keep ARG spinning? You can do so at patreon.com/ARG Presents. Just like these fine folks. Dryrlent 17, Laron Garut, Templar Mar, Z9K9, Jerry Dennington, John Dykeman, Retroology, Air Shack, Texas Foosballer, Sundown, O-Rom, Super Tech Boy, David Terrence, Mr. B, Roushi, Graham, W. Vetke, Dave Velociraptor, Bernhardt Lucas, Steve Rasmussen, Anthony Jarvis, Bitterblitter, Pajako 6502, Kevin Bean, Andy Jones, Andy Craig, Rob Black O'Hara, Jason Warnes, Mitsuyama, Chris Foles, Frodo Inel, The Slow Norris, Terry Howard, Olaf Hope, and Rolo. They all have access to our Discord channel, their name called out in the credits, and visualized in the ending scene. Have an idea for a wheel piece? You can send it to us at argpresents@mail.com.